Several people, a family.
Accused claims he heard voices coming from within the house.
Based on real events, a phrase that will turn your blood to ice in an instant, especially when attached to a particularly gruesome and grim horror flick. It's nice to leave a movie knowing that it was all fake and that the killer/monster/supernatural phenomenon will only return if there's a sequel, but to look at something and think, damn, a human being did that in real life is a harrowing experience. That's why studios love taking real-life tales and adapting them into freaky features. Sure, it's not always in good taste, but it fills seats and gets views. Hello horror heads, and welcome back to the scariest channel on YouTube, Top 5 Scary Videos. I'm your horror host, Keegan Hughes, and today we're going to be taking a look at the top 5 scary real stories that should be turned into movies. Before we get started, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe for more silver screen soliloquies. Perfect, let's begin. Starting us off at number 5, we've got the pig mask. We've all seen You're Next, right? Or Drive, or maybe played Hotline Miami. Then we're all aware of how terrifying and deadly a person in an animal or other mask can be. So this story is already good to go right to Hollywood if you ask me. No additional details necessary at this point. However, I will elaborate in order to make sure that the pitch is well received. See, there are plenty of creepy stories shared online every day. Folks experience all sorts of awful stuff in their day-to-day lives because we all live in hell, basically. A fellow on Reddit shared the tale of the pig mask, regaling us with a series of events that transpired while he was young and playing Diablo 2. He was hanging out in the kitchen playing this classic loot-based game as his brother and a pal chilled in the basement. Or maybe he was writing music. Little details. Whatever was going on, the storyteller was focused on his laptop and not his surroundings. A knock startled him to awareness and he saw a person in a pig mask at the back door. Assuming it was just his brother or his friend, the lad flipped the masked individual off and returned to work. Soon after, he went downstairs to call them out for their odd behavior, but they were both playing video games and hadn't left the house at any point. The curly-tailed assailant was never identified. This, of course, is a classic horror movie intro. The killer appears, makes their presence known, and then fades into the darkness. No imminent danger at first, it just seems to be a harmless prank. But then body parts start piling up, and we've got a veritable bloodbath on our hands. Maybe the masked individual has more masked friends waiting in the wings, or maybe the mask is to conceal some horrid demonic features. Either way, don't be surprised if the next Blumhouse film features this as an opening scene. Coming in at number 4, we've got the Phone Stalker. More horror tropes in real life. It's been used in every possible way. The rambling overtures from Billy in Black Christmas, the super specific threats and horror movie trivia in Scream, the call from inside the house in When a Stranger Calls, you name it. Telephones can be vehicles of unspeakable horror if used correctly. You never know who could be on the other end, right? Well, a bunch of families experienced this specific brand of cellular terror back in 2007. Calls rolled in from what appeared to be multiple callers detailing stunningly specific threats. The phone would ring at all hours with people on the other end threatening to kill their kids, their grandparents, and even their pets. The killer callers would also leave voice messages with recordings of private conversations. Specific names, articles of clothing, and activities were all mentioned in these calls, scaring the families stiff. And surprise, surprise, the police were pretty much powerless to stop it. I can see this idea being turned into a movie no problem. Give each affected family a dark secret and have the callers all be members of a sinister guild of stalkers, and you've got yourself some high drama. At first, it would seem like the families are simply innocent victims chosen at random by some lunatics with burner phones. However, as they desperately tried to find out who's calling, buried secrets are revealed. There's something tying the recipients together, and callers are trying to enact their own brand of justice. Maybe the families all have exploitative pasts and are now living a comfy life on their ill-earned assets. Or maybe someone on the caller's end has some vested interests that the families are trying to take down. Whatever the backstory, a coordinated phone stalking campaign would make for an excellent horror movie. Or a really bad one, but who's to say? Coming in at number 3, we've got a satanic school teacher. Think the kindergarten teacher, but way more sinister. Back in 2012, there was a fairly well-publicized case where a school teacher from Florida was arrested for abuse of 7 of her former students. The teacher had become quite the demon worshiper and wanted her students to join in on the fun. She involved them in all sorts of rituals, convincing them that they needed to rid their bodies of demons. Doing so meant that they cut their skin to let the demons out and then burned the wounds to prevent any from returning. Not exactly the lessons you want your kids learning at school. cool, eh? Maybe if you sent them to a boarding school, but still. This could be a really fun horror movie, with the teacher starting out as a lovely and likable educator who slowly descends into obsession. As the movie progresses, she could become more and more unhinged, at first performing rituals on her lonesome, but involving her students over time. It would be for extra credit and a so-called safe space for her students that maybe didn't have too many friends. Hell, you could even do like a School of Rock scenario, but instead of learning the power of teamwork and music, they'd be learning how to summon demons. All fun and games until the parents find out, but by then it's too late. The Hellspawn have already arrived. Coming in at number 2, we've got Kennedy Ife. Exorcism movies have been done to death, but what if we took a different angle? The story is absolutely tragic and maddening to think about. Back in 2016, there was a man named Kennedy Ife who began acting strange. His family reported that he had bit his dad, threatened to self-mutilate, and complained of a snake inside of his body. Instead of bringing him to get the help he obviously needed, Kennedy's family tied him to a bed using excessive force. Following this violent restraint, the family tried to cure him of his demon through prayer. They left him tied to the bed for days without food or water, hoping that this would somehow draw the demon out. It didn't, and Kennedy died. The family was accused of manslaughter, false imprisonment, and allowing or causing the death of a vulnerable adult. However, they were all cleared of charges after the jury deliberated. Just an absolutely horrible story of a dangerous, deluded family refusing to seek help when necessary. The family denied cult associations, but it really does feel like a new alternative religion type of situation. If a movie were to be made, I think centering Kennedy as the protagonist would make for a sympathetic, if not volatile, character. The horror would come from his family gaslighting and refusing to help him. Their actions are scary enough, and I'm sure there are details left out of the public record. The family would be convinced that they were saving Kennedy by performing their own exorcism, and as the movie progresses, Kennedy himself might start to believe them. Gruesome rituals and horrible treatment would occur. Terrible hallucinations would appear and possibly manifest. But in the end, is there really a demon? We may never know for sure. And finally, at number 1, we've got Elisa Lam. This well-known and tragic story is so scary because it remains unexplained. Elisa Lam was last seen on January 31st, 2013 in the lobby of the hotel she was staying in. She disappeared and stopped checking in with her parents. The police were involved, but nothing showed up at first. Then, footage of Lam acting strange in the hotel's elevator was released. There are many theories as to what she's doing at this point, whether it's demonic possession, unknown attackers, or psychotic breaks topping the list. As this footage was being analyzed, hotel guests began to notice that the water was off. It tasted funny and would sometimes come out black. This prompted an employee to check the water tanks. Inside one of the tanks was the naked, decomposing body of this young woman. Her death was labeled accidental after an autopsy, but it seems very strange that something like that would happen accidentally. The rooftop was secured with alarms and locks, and the tank has a metal latch that needs to be opened in order to access it. In terms of what actually happened, it's hard to say. But a horror movie could investigate these possibilities and take it in any direction. It could weave in the hotel's violent history, including housing the Night Stalker Richard Ramirez, the international serial killer Jack Unterweger, and the incident in which a woman jumped out of a window, killing her and the person she landed on. Could these grisly events have something to do with Lam's tragic fate? Taking a look at the experiences of the guests who imbibed in the tainted water would be scary too. Haunted hotels and unexplained deaths are rife with storytelling potential. Let's see it on the big screen. Well, would you buy a ticket or two? Maybe stream one of these reality-inspired tales? Or maybe download them illegally? Make sure you let me know down in the comments. Speaking of comments, let's take a look at some of your more woolly ones from the top 5 scary new horror movies still coming out in 2020. Austin Dunfin says, "My wife wants me to stop watching horror movies because she thinks it makes me look like a psychopath. I can't do that." See, it's the folks who strictly consume safe media that you have to worry about. What's going on in a head that avoids taboo at all costs? Richard Clark says, "Surprised not to see Antlers on this list, Keegan. Was probably the horror film I was most looking forward to this year." You gotta go check out our other 2020 horror lists. Antlers definitely makes an appearance. Rookie Agent 47 says, "Throwing axes in a rubber room sounds fun and all, but please remember to wear a helmet. We can't have you losing your head, okay?" I don't know what a helmet's gonna do if an axe hits me in the neck, but hey, at least I'll go out in style. Legalized Homicide says, "Am I the only one that hated A Quiet Place?" It seems that opinions on that flick are pretty divided. I think the love for it cooled down after a while when everyone realized they didn't really want to revisit it. And Lupin Games says, "I like potatoes." Don't we all? And that's all the time we have for today. Before I put out a grease fire with water, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe for more stupendous stories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. So this story is already good to go, right? He was hanging out in the kitchen, and we've got a veritable The killer callers would also leave voice messages. As the movie progresses, she Back in 2016, there was a man named Kennedy Ife who began acting strange. They left him tied to the bed through. However, they were all Why am I... At this